of deserts, which are defined as large, extremely dry areas of land with sparse vegetation. But have you ever heard of a food desert? Food deserts are part of the country where they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables and whole foods due to lack of a grocery store with them or lack of transportation. Now, you may have been on a road trip throughout the United States of America, going through a rural area, and you see a residential house. But you wonder, there's no grocery stores around. Well, that means they live in a food desert. They don't have accessibility to a grocery store, either due to their transportation or due to no grocery store being there. So throughout this speech, you learn about where food deserts are located and why they are located there, and also what we're going to do to help them as a country. So first, let's start off about locating the food deserts. As you can see on the presentation, they're mostly found in the southeastern part of the country, also the mid-south, and this is a greater presence of them, but they are all over our country. Now, the next map correlates directly with the poverty rates. So the higher poverty rates in our country are found in the same places that the food deserts are found. Now, this isn't just a coincidence. If a community has a higher poverty rate, there will be less accessibility to grocery stores. That's because the community doesn't have funding to build them, but also they don't have the transportation. So now, if they don't have the transportation to get to the grocery store, they're going to be relying on fast food. Now, fast food is easier accessibility for these people who don't have grocery stores. So they're going to go to the closest place that they can get their food in the most cheapest place. They're not going to drive out of their way, which this is called the convenience factor by Mary Gallinger. So Mary Gallinger named this factor because people aren't going to drive out of their way to get better, healthier, more whole food if they can get something for their family right next to them. So, a little bit about the poverty rates by Poverty USA. The Native American, the Black, African American, and Hispanic have the highest poverty rates in the United States. So these are the these are the communities that are most greatly affected in our own country by these food deserts. As you can see, the overall poverty rate is 13.9% in 2016. So all these communities that are below the poverty line or at the poverty line, many of them don't have access to grocery stores because they don't have the funds to have a car, and they can't pay for public transportation, and they don't have the time. So this is more about the convenience food factor. So Mary stated this because people, if there's a McDonald's 10 minutes away, or if there's a Fred Meyer 20 minutes away, if a mom needs to put food on her family's table, she's going to go to the McDonald's and not go to the Fred Meyer and take time to buy the groceries and then make something because McDonald's is closer. So in these families that need quick food and need food that is reasonable, that's where they're going to go. So now a little bit about the individuals and as well as the government and what they're doing to help these communities. So one individual is Jeff Brown, and he started the ShopRite stores. So he opens stores in communities that do not have a grocery store available to them, and then he also hires people who have been let out of jail, which normally they cannot get jobs. So he's making a big impact. For example, in 2008, he opened a ShopRite store and he gave jobs to 160 people, 40 of which were just released from jail. And then he allowed this community to have culturally aware foods that they were used to, and they were no longer a food desert. And then on the government side of things, the government does have many different projects. One, for example, is the Community Fund Projects Program, which gives $8.6 billion to communities around the United States to help fund projects to create stores and businesses, and then also access to farms and agriculture and whole foods to these communities. So, as you can see, food deserts are not just a second or third world problem. They're here today in our first world country, they're in our communities, and they're all across the country. So as you can see, poverty rates and the identity, ethnicity, and race of people play a big correlation to if they're living in a food desert. Higher poverty rates linked to higher rates of food deserts. So, thank you for listening to my speech today, and I hope it gives you a little food for thought.
I did not understand.